This is Anthony Francisco's creature design live Q&A. So Anthony, if you're there, I'm going to give you control now, and if you can, just give us an introduction about who you are and your how you got into the industry and everything like that. So let's say go for it.
Okay. All right, hello guys. My name is Anthony Francisco, and I'm here today to just answer any questions you guys have about creature concept art or any other questions there. It doesn't even have to be about just creature stuff, because most of the fundamentals work for any type of concept art you want to make. Anyway, I first started as special effects in special effects as a creature designer. My first job I did was for ADI, Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated, and they're the guys who did Alien Resurrection and Bubble Boy and what else did they do? Starship Troopers. Anyway, the first job I did for them was for Bubble Boy, and that was pretty cool experience, learning from these guys how to design stuff that will actually work for film. And if you guys want to see any of the work I did, you could go on the special features of Bubble Boy and check out the sketches there, and you'll see some of my older work from 10 years ago, I think. Anyway, what else? I met Jordu when I was going to, Jordu was the guy who helped me break into the effects business by introducing me to the guys that own ADI. And anyway, from special effects, I got into games through NCSoft and working on Guild Wars. And from there, I stayed there for 2.5 years and went to Project Offset. And now Project Offset has been bought out by Intel. We moved up there to San Jose for a little bit, and now I don't know if you guys heard the news, but we are not funded anymore by Intel, and we have started a new company called Fractive. So that's everything in a nutshell.
Awesome, thank you, Anthony. And again, for everyone who's in attendance, again, you can enter your questions in now so that we can start asking them. Beyond that, Anthony, if you can, and I thought I saw one earlier, a slideshow of some of your work. If you could show that and just talk about it a little bit, would be great.
Okay. So here I'm going to share some old work that I did for NCSoft for a game that's not gonna be made. You guys probably seen this already in the in my blog. And here's for Magic cards. So now I do freelance for Magic, The Gathering, while I was at Project Offset. This image here is one of the images I used for Men in Black 2. I worked on that for a little bit. This shark creature here ended up being in the movie. He was supposed to be one of the main bad guys in the end, but he just in the end became one of the guys in the airport receiving area. If you watch the movie carefully, maybe, but the movie sucks, so I don't know. You could watch it for the special effects, which is cool. And then another, one of my favorite pieces that I did, Minotaur for NCSoft, and worked on Tabula Rasa and some characters. Oops. And anyway, and I wanted to show some examples of how my folders look like when I'm drawing, because I do a lot of sketches, and I'm not so good. I'm not that fast, and I change my mind almost all the time when I do my ideas. So here's some idea of how my my beginning process when I try to compose a picture or sketch out ideas and stuff before the final piece I wanted to do. But see how it jumps all over the place, like composition, trying to figure things out. And then I changed the snow scene, but here's some. And then my reference stuff, I make sure I put everything in one page so I could see it all at the same time. And then from here I could just zoom in to decide which one which details I want to use, but at least I see everything at once. And it's also always good to see it small, so you see if it reads well or not. More reference stuff. So one more example, just some recent B-movie creature stuff I did, some quick sketches before I take it to a final.
Those are all really awesome, Anthony.
Thanks. And then the final image would be that.
And which project were these images for?
It was for a B-movie, and I don't know if it even got made. Hopefully that's okay to show. They didn't tell me what movie it was, but okay. Well.
Well, in general, then, how often do you create work that never sees the light of day, basically? Like, is that a common occurrence when doing concept art?
I've been fortunate that I've worked in films that have been made as movies. In games, Guild Wars and Tabula Rasa, got made, but Tabula Rasa didn't have that much life. And I think the hardest part was this project Offset, because I've been on it for 3 years, and I don't think it'll ever see the light of day unless we get more, some kind of funding for it. But these are some images from the Project Offset game.
Wow.
I would have loved to show you guys some videos. This is some videos of some of the cinematics I directed, but I don't know when I could show that.
Well, we don't want you to do anything that you're not supposed to do, so it's perfectly fine. Well, we'll start with a couple questions that we have. Casey, if you're there, you didn't say if you had a microphone or not, so if you're there, can you say hello, Casey? Casey? Okay, Casey isn't responding via mic, so I'm going to read Casey's question. Casey asks, what advice do you have for drawing animals from life? I have a hard time drawing them since they move so much, and was wondering if you had any tips.
Oh, well, definitely, well, from life, well, I guess the first thing I did before when I was trying to get better with drawing animals from life, I would look at photos first, because they're not moving, right, and try to break down the form. Plus, I took an animal drawing class, and that really helped me understand how to block in something quickly. For example, okay, like, for example, with animals, you usually want to make sure you get good overlaps, right? But first, blocking the form, they usually think of them more like a tube like this first for the torso, just referring to them like human skeleton, right? And you break it down to 3, like this, making sure you have your perspective kind of where you want it, like this. And you have the rib cage here, and then the pelvis here, and then the backbone there. So just like a human, human skeleton, but the only difference with them is that they'll be in 4s. Well, not all animals in 4s, but for just a generic like 4-legged animal, you'll want to just remember the clavicles right here, and then the shoulder muscles coming here, and So this is like the basic blocking that you would do for any kind of animal. Just knowing where the vertebrae is, like the action of the vertebrae. Okay, let me say this over again just to make sure it's clear. Like when you see an animal from life, right? So from the side view, you want to start just with a tube, like this, and you break it down to 3, right? And then the rib cage and proportion is really important here, because then by looking at pictures already, you kind of just remember the proportions of the animal. But this is how I just usually try to break it down into like a general, general proportion breakdown, like this. And then the rib cage right here, and then the pelvis right here. And then the hind legs here, and then the front legs here. Remembering that this is where the elbow is, and remember that this is where your knee is going to be, because most people think the knee is over here or something. I mean, the common mistake people make are not knowing exactly where the knee is and where the pelvis actually attaches to where the hip is. And you always have to remember that they're kind of like tiptoeing. So this is the heel. So the neck just attaches here, and so basic animal shape. I don't know if that's clear. Just a simple breakdown for let's say it's an elephant. An elephant, so you put your block to the basic proportion of the elephant, right? And then he's like thicker. So and you break it down to 3, and you have your rib cage, and you just see the contour of how the elephant's back goes up. Then after you kind of get a blocking of your rib cage, then you fill in the masses, right? So his gut will be here, and then with elephants, their legs go straight down more. So, but their knee will still be here from where their hind leg touched the pelvis. I think the proportion of where their heel is not as high as the dog's up here. It's actually kind of lower right there. And definitely having reference is really important.
How would that all apply to like birds and different types of fowl or fish, for example?
Which one? I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, like how would you do these proportions for like a bird or a fish?
Okay, for birds, birds have, I guess if you know your biology pretty well, which it's good to study up on that and know which different types of animals, their classes, I guess you could say. So birds have their own class, and then there's mammals, and then reptilia, and amphibians, right? But all of them kind of share the same kind of break it down into 3. But the only difference is, the visual components, the proportions, controlling that is what you have to pay attention to. So let's say a bat, again, if you start with the torso, you break it down to 3 again, but the bat's pelvis is going to be about this wide. I'm not exactly sure. I don't really remember. I should have reference open right now so I could break it down more clearly. But this is just a generic, because the question is, how do you have it almost like a generic skeleton that you could use when you draw from life, right? That's kind of what the question was.
Basically, yeah. Like, this would be your advice for drawing animals from life,
Yeah, so I would think of it this way. It helps me easier to break it down to 3 like this. Even if it's a head, you also still break it down to 3, because then the eye goes here. Here's where the long part of the nose is, and then here's the nose and the muzzle area. So it's still like broken down to 3. It's not the same size necessarily. It could be bigger like this, and then depending where you want the eye to go, this is kind of like creature design already. You're like, depending where, you could put the eye here, or even more in the front here. But this breakdown will help you break down the animals you look at, more. So if you have a picture of like a turtle, you put a tracing paper over that turtle and try to study where you could break down that shape, where the muzzle is, where the skull area is. Hold on a second. Let me just
Okay, that's
let me
good.
just get a turtle picture real quick. I just wanted to show how we could do this. Okay, it's just people, you guys like study this stuff just so it's easier to find your shortcuts to do this. So like this one, I would sorry, let me make it cleaner. So it's still a square, and now just getting where the perspective is of the square like this, and then you break this down. How does this break down? Oh, sorry guys. Okay, hold on a second. I'm so sorry guys. Hold on.
We apologize for that interruption while we wait for Anthony. Again, for you guys who are in attendance, you can enter questions right now. We have about 2 more that we just added there. But anyone who's online can ask questions at the moment, so that'll be great.
Sorry guys. I just took care of that real quick. Anyway, so I practice by breaking down the shape like this, and this eye is actually in the front of that skull. So, but still breaking down the skeleton kind of like this, and it's just easier to understand. So when you go out to life, to drawing from life, you could, when you see a turtle, you could just break it down that way. But anyway, sorry for for the bats. I just want to get this out real quick. For the bats, and birds, when you do the arms, the bone structure would go like this, and it would be these fingers that become like the bat wing area. So that's like the basic breakdown for that. And I think their feet are backwards like this. So knuckles here. So you always you could relate it to like just human anatomy. And if you think of it that way, like here's the elbow, and here are the fingers, shoulder, then sometimes it makes sense faster that way. I don't know, is that helpful?
I think that's more than helpful, actually. You did quite a bit there. And actually, we have another question here from Steve. Steve says, "Hi, Anthony. Do you have any advice for a concept artist who is starting out doing freelance? Thanks."
Starting out doing freelance. Well, first off, it's good to have a website so you're exposed to the internet, so it's easy for people to access your work. And blog is also good, so people see your process of how you create stuff, and you could also kind of show how fast you do stuff there by telling them how much time you spent on it. And another thing would be to just join forums and get your stuff out there so it's more exposed to just a lot of people surfing the internet. And I would get some hits while I was working at Offset. As long as I had my blog up, I would get emails just asking if I could do like little concept work here or there, and sometimes bigger jobs that I can't go to. But I think the internet is a really powerful tool for that. And of course, it's also good to look at, it depends if you want to go a game or film. Games, most game companies have their websites, and their job openings and all this stuff that you could send stuff in, and you could specify an objective in your resume that you're just interested in freelance work. Most game companies, I think, do freelance work, so and even mostly for film, it is a freelance gig because every like 3-4 months, the project's over and then you have to move on. And another good way to also try to look for opportunity is like the Hollywood Reporter. So it's not as up to date, but but I know there's a way you could probably, how do you say, it's like see what's in production, see the company that's doing that production, and somehow get the address and sending your stuff to them, like hard copies to them, and that's another way to also apply for the jobs.
Thank you, Anthony. Our next question is from Autumn, I believe, or basically Autumn asks, are there any books you recommend that have been useful to you? What are the art books / regular books you couldn't live without for inspiration, reference, etc.?
Yeah, definitely. Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Definitely the Animal Studies book. That's like one of my favorite books. It's just a bunch of black and white sketches that seems like he used graphite and gray paper with gouache on top, or even watercolor. But it's a good reference in seeing how this guy just created his visual language to describe the forms of the animals. So it's kind of stylized, but it's still pretty realistic. But you learn a lot from just how he handles fur, or he handles structure. So it's Animal Studies, 550 Illustrations of Mammals, Birds, Fish, and Insects by M. Mehut.
Well, if anything, I would say, can you send me a link to that, and that way I can add it to our site's extra section.
Okay. I could also, on my blog, I could also post up my, inspirational books and stuff. So.
Oh, actually, that would be perfect as well. So yeah, check out Anthony's blog. He'll add it there for you guys. Are there any other other references that you can't live without? You just have to have these things at all times to inspire you or help you create art.
There really is a lot of books, but if it's not just, it's a lot of anime books that I like. But something that you can't live without, I like all my books. I don't think I could live without any of my. I need all my books. But okay, let me try to think. What? Well, for character stuff, it's called Athlete by Howard Schatz. That is an awesome book because it shows a bunch of different athletic builds, and it's all front view kind of shots. So it's just a variety of different body types, which is really cool. And more animal books would be, there's this book called Beast, B-E-S-T, and that's this awesome wildlife painter. That's really, he really captures the epicness of the African wilderness and the animals that roam around there. Really awesome stuff. That's a really thick book. It's kind of expensive, but to me it's worth it. And there's another book called website. I'm trying to look for it here, but I don't remember the name.
Well, actually, then don't worry about it. We can check out your blog when you update it later. And again, we have a link to his blog on the CGMW website to basically go there and check out his reference collection. Our next question actually is from Art S. Art asked, hi Anthony, thank you very much for your workshop. I want to know if you ever have developed some creatures that are not based on bones and muscles, and how to approach this kind of alien creature.
I did actually. I had done some stuff for Tabula Rasa on trying to come up with an alien being, that's not that hasn't been seen. Trying to come up with something really unique. But sometimes it's difficult. But hold on, let me think this through. So you're saying no bones, octopuses, stuff like that, or are you saying no referenced creatures, something totally different?
Art, if you're there, could you answer that possibly? Are you referring to more like cephalopods and or insects, for example. And while Art is answering, I'll just say, he says bones like human and animals. So
Okay.
I want
I
to know
see.
if you've ever developed some creatures that are not based on bones like humans and animals.
Bones. Here's an example I did for Tabula Rasa. This is on my site. So this is more, it's still based on animals. I guess this is like a jellyfish, right? It has no
Like
bones,
an
but it still has
invertebrate, basically, yeah.
yeah, it still has structure. Um, but it would be difficult to design something that has no structure at all, unless it's like a blobby kind of amoebic type thing, and that has its own like visual language, right? But usually, if it's for your portfolio to get work stuff, it's always good to have a variety of stuff and not just one structured, kind of biped creature. You should have four, 6 legs, and four wings, yeah. Just so there's a variety in your work. Um, but I think this is the closest that I guess I designed something with no bone structure at all. Did that answer the question?
I think it did. Art, if you are still there, he says yes, thank you. So that's
Okay.
perfect. We have a couple offline questions for you, for people that actually couldn't make it to the live Q&A.
Okay.
Carlos asks, is there a specific color palette you like to start your sketches with?
No, nothing really. Just I go black and white first. Sometimes I do color when I could see the color I want to use. But usually color palette just comes from nature. So if I see it in nature, then that's the palette I'm going to use for the creature. Unless, of course, it's specifically asked by the art director, or you're trying to find a visual guide. If you're establishing a visual key for your creature, then that will need like further experimentation in which colors work. But there's there's the usual uh, color theory palettes that people have. The complement, split complementary, and stuff like that, which you could also use. But I think the best teacher would be from life. So nature's the best designer. So the colors that they use, you just use the same colors in your creatures.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Our next question is from Kathy. She asks, what is the project that you have found the most interesting to work on so far?
I don't know. Every project I've worked on, I could say I'm more of a really positive kind of guy. So every project I've worked on, I'm always excited to work on it because it's always a challenge to do something unique for that particular project, and to make sure that that when you see this creature, you think of that game or that movie. Sometimes it's not. When I say what I mean by unique is not really different. It's more like being memorable, because sometimes being uh, familiar is what makes your successful design. Is something that's familiar to people, but then has your own spin on it, so then people remember it. So I guess that's the challenge you get from every project. But I guess if I would choose a project that I worked on, that overall, aside from the subject matter and the people I work with, I guess Project Offset, I can't even say it because I really enjoyed work at NCSoft and all the people I've met in special effects. So uh, I don't have a favorite. I love them all. So.
Okay, that's good. By the way, Norman Lee says, hi, Anthony. That's all he said.
Hello.
He didn't have a
Hey, how you
question.
doing?
I guess if they're watching. Um, Our next question is from offline as well, is from Oscar, and he asks, one second, what is the most complicated creature type to create? Basically, I guess in your opinion, what is the most complicated one that you have regularly encountered or have to do?
Complicated creature. I guess when there's a lot of crazy details and well, things get complicated when you know the art director doesn't know what he wants, and even because once he knows, okay, it's gonna be a two-legged, it's gonna be a werewolf, then it's kind of easy, right? But if he doesn't know what he wants, then it gets pretty complicated, like trying to figure out the style, or you know how or what type of animal is it going to be, or is it going to be referred to. It doesn't have to be that exact animal. Um, and I guess if there's machines that's stuck into the animal, that gets a bit complicated because you want to be clear with the design of that. I think once machine comes in there, machines really make things a bit complicated for me anyway.
So you tend to be more of an organic type of concept artist as opposed to one that does hard surfaces.
What was the question?
Like, no, I'm just making a comment, basically. So you tend to do more organic than you do actual hard surface work.
Yeah. Most of the jobs I get, it's mostly fantasy stuff and creatures that are for horror. So there's no machinery plugged into them, except some zombie stuff I did where there's a lot of like crazy machinery stuff that's stuck. But you know, there's ways to simplify those forms. But when you have to finalize it, you have to make sure those forms are integrated well and clear in the design.
Awesome. Our next question is from Fernando Acosta. He asks, great workshop. Thanks for sharing. He says, having worked both in games and films, which industry do you like the most, and do you see yourself staying in games or going back to film?
Well, each one has the pros and cons, but I guess with film, what's nice is you get to work on big movies, and games it's almost like a stability that, I mean, in films it's pretty stable too if you always go out looking for work. So you know you have to hustle all the time, sending your stuff out, unless you know you're very well known already and people come to you. But in games you have this a little more relaxed, I guess. Not relaxed really, more what's the word I'm trying to look for?
Well, maybe relaxed does work.
Yeah, it's a little more relaxed, I guess, because there's no big budget, you know, the money. I mean, it's still a lot of money. Wow, this question is actually the hardest question. I can't. I would like to be in film. I guess that would be the end result that I want to see, is working on movies again, because it just has. I guess I just like movies a lot. And maybe it's more, it has a popularity is not the word, but it has something like that's enticing, you know.
Yeah, I guess it's more of the just either not the mystique, but I guess the just I can't think of the word either now. I had a brain fart too. It's more prestigious, I guess.
Prestigious, maybe that's, yeah, you're right. Maybe, I think that's the word we're looking for.
Yeah, so I can respect that. I can relate.
Yeah. Yeah. But not to say that Project Offset was still one of the best, because I controlled a lot of the art direction there, and most of the I mean, not the environment, of course. Kang did that, but Kang let me. We both had our thing that we needed to do, and I handled all the characters and creatures, and I did the style guide. Um, so making sure each character is distinct to its class, and what kind of making sure that, like, let's say the goblin and the dwarves, they have their technology, and making sure there's very different technology. So I guess working in that environment was really exciting because I got to control and see the final product till the end.
Okay, awesome, Anthony. Our next question is from, I believe Norman Lee actually has a question now. Norman asks, do you ever sculpt or 3D model your creatures? And also, how did you get work doing Magic the Gathering cards? Thanks.
Oh, yeah, the Magic Gathering card work. I was still at NCSoft when that happened. I had a friend that, okay, both of us were going to show our stuff to the guys at Magic during Comic-Con. So I would say Comic-Con is like one of the best places to kind of show your stuff, to get work in these publishing companies. But I guess it's also, I got lucky because we did know somebody there, and he had brought my portfolio in, and I didn't get to show up, but they did like my stuff, and they gave me a test, and well, not test. They just gave me one card to do and to see if it, if I could do that one card. And I guess they liked the work, and then from then on, I started getting more Magic card work. But I haven't asked for too much cards to do because it's just I just get like 1 or 2 cards per block per series.
Okay.
So yes, that's how I got into that. Kind of fell in there.
Okay. But do you ever sculpt and 3D model your work or creatures?
No, but I am starting to. I haven't fully incorporated it yet, but I'm trying to learn ZBrush. If you guys check out my blog, there's some ZBrush sketches I have made, but nothing like final yet. It's just
What
don't have
about
time.
traditional sculpting?
Yeah, definitely did a lot of traditional sculpting. Never fully finished it to the end though, but just learning to block out forms properly, and uh, and just knowing how the structure sits in space, just helped me out tremendously with making sure I have a solid foundation when I do my structures for my creatures.
Okay, awesome. We have another offline question that I just got. It's from Stuart. What advice do you have to create good texture renderings in your work?
Um, get Make sure you get good pictures, and when you drop it in, make sure it's the lighting that is in your illustration. When you do a creature design or a character design, you want to make sure you have where your light source is coming from. And when you get a texture, it's always good to get the texture that has the right light source. And if you can't get that, when you take your own texture, make sure you take it on an overcast day so it doesn't have a strong light source on it, so you could manipulate the light source yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
That
That's
sounds
usually how
good.
matte painters do it.
Awesome. And there's still people here, but there's no more questions that I see posted. I guess I'm just watching you draw
Yes.
at this point.
That's just going to show how, I wanted to show how you could use, because the question earlier about color, color palette, and so
Yes.
I just put this frog there because let's say that's my color palette, and I'm just do a quick creature right now.
Oh,
And
go
drop
right
into
ahead. That's
there.
perfect. We'll just sit back and watch.
Yeah,
So,
so, I'd probably detail this some more. You can see that it's part kind of crab. So when I so I still have my structure underneath that, that's in my head right now. The one line that goes through, and then, divide into three. Here's the rib cage and the pelvis. This is more humanoid, so I just want a simple, just for the purpose of this demo, I just want something simple so I could show this idea. Okay, I'd probably detail this some more, but just for the purpose of showing what, so put the layer to multiply and just, you could color pick if you can, but if not, you could just you just try and match the color closely. You don't have to get the color exactly like that. That's just like a reference for me to try. So put it in multiply, and I'll quickly just take out my the pressure sensitivity, so it's like just solid. Oh, what's wrong with this? Yeah, so it's just solid like this. So I just want to mask this out real quick for you guys. You could tell I like shrimps a lot, so or crabs and shrimps, some sea creatures. I would recommend you should have a lot of reference for that because it's just really cool shapes.
That's awesome. Is that because they're tasty as well?
Yeah, I'm allergic to shrimps actually, but I just like.
Oh, so you just have this longing for something you can't really have.
Yeah, it shows in my designs. Yeah. So let's say, okay, just do a quick mask, and so from this basic shape, I could add more stuff on it to make the shape a little more interesting. And right now I'm doing this. It's just a rule of thumb. It's not. I don't use it all the time, but sometimes I think about like this is the inactive side and this the active side. So you see a lot of like going ins and outs on this side, while this side is just straight. And if I want to make this crazy, this side won't have much texture on this side, just so there's a play on both sides. Because you have to know contrast is what you have to really pay attention to when you're doing these things, because contrast will help certain areas shine more. Some areas would look more detailed because one area is quiet. The example of like Batman and Batman the TV series. So here's Batman, but when Bruce Timm is good with making like one side active and then one side's active and then the inactive side. So it's like this is inactive and then active. So when he does things, he doesn't just do straight like this. He actually, this is straight and then this turns, or something like that. So if it's the other way around, this would go other way around. The arm would go this way, and then the inside would be straight. I kind of do that a lot with my stuff. And then from there, from that beginning, you could kind of do some stuff. Kind of break the shape a little more. And so you could kind of see this detail because this side is clean. This side's clean, and you'll see this detail. Usually, the distribution of details would be in the shoulders, elbows, and then the knee area, and your centerpiece would be here. Really nice. Sometimes it's the head. It really depends what you want to show off. But anyway, back to what I'm trying to do here. So I have a mask now, and you get a layer on top, and you go Control-Alt-G, and then it will make the multiply layer my mask. So now when I paint anything under there, it would be masked out. So sometimes, you could even take this image, and just like drop it into that mask. So now it's in there like that, and just like, even just kind of put that in there. Like all of us concept artists, we love using the warp tool, of course. Warp tool's awesome. And then just see where my so this is just a quick way to get some kind of texture in there. So at least you got some details now and paint on top of that. So that's one way to get the color in there and texture. But the other way, so you have more control of it, would just be getting close. Okay, so even just following the pattern of that will also help out with your design. So I almost don't really make up my own color palette. I just copy from life and just adjust it, based on what. Let's say here. He has this stripe. My brush is still solid, just so I'm like trying to put in just blocks of color. Feel free to ask any questions, guys, if there's any questions.
Oh, well, yes, I actually have some questions.
Yes.
Julio asks, says, hello, guys. Hello, Anthony. Very cool workshop. I would like to know, how do you manage the image resolution for your sketches versus final piece for clients on a basic production?
My image resolution, usually I don't paint that big, but lately I've been noticing that to get really in there, I gotta get my image to be as big as my computer can handle. Image size. So right now it's 2,000 pixels. Sometimes you want that at 4,000 or even 6,000, but at 72 dpi. So it still runs okay. So usually it will work this big, and when in games they usually we just print it out, and computers, they're pretty powerful anyway, so they could handle the high resolution. The output of how big your image is really depends on who you're sending it to also, because you want them to make sure they could see it. Does that answer the question? I guess it doesn't really, whatever you're comfortable working with. If you want to really get in there and put some detail, you'd probably want it to be really big.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah. Okay.
And this actually may be our closing question, depending on how long it takes you to answer it and finish your sketch there. That's coming out really cool. Basically, it's one from Autumn again. Autumn asks, who are your artistic, inspirational influence? Like, I guess, like how you got into art. Like, is there any one inspirational or artistic influence that you had? Painters. Probably a famous painter or someone from your family or something you saw or did at one point in time?
I guess for creatures, definitely Jordu is one of the best guys there. He's like taught me a lot, just visual language, of how creatures should be proportioned or like structured, and when I was just getting into the industry, Carlos Wante was also there. And, you know, I'm sure, I don't know if Carla mentioned this, but Carla and I, we go really way back when we were still in college, and we always swap ideas with each other. And, you know, your peers also help out a lot with, you know, growing. But as a creature designer and things that inspire me, it's really like nature, things you see in nature, and the movies I watched when I was a kid. Because Clash of the Titans, that's like, I think when I saw that, I was like, oh man, I want to do that, but I didn't know there was a job doing that kind of stuff until I went to Associates of Art, and then I met Jerdu, and then that's when he said, you know, there's jobs like creature designer jobs. I was like, wow, you know, you could do this for a living, you know, wow, it's so cool. Um, yeah, there really isn't. Uh, I don't know one guy that's my main influence. So I don't know. Does that answer the question?
I think so, and
Yeah.
I think that's a good ending. Actually, we've
Okay.
reached the end of our time. I'd like to thank everyone who attended today's live Q&A. A special thanks, of course, going to Anthony for giving us, you know, his time today to answer our questions. So to you, Anthony, we thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and you know, hopefully the stuff I said helped you guys out. And if you guys have any questions, again, you know, if just drop by my blog or just email me, and you know, when I have time, I'll try to answer it.
Awesome. And for everyone who's still here, remember you can go back to the site. We have one more workshop left tomorrow, and also the other workshops are still available if you purchase them all together as a package. So please feel free to go back to the site to check out the ones that you haven't seen already. And also make sure to fill out the surveys at the end of all the artists' profile page. So again, thank you all for attending. To you again, Anthony, we thank you, and we hope you enjoyed his creature design workshop and today's live Q&A. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.